We'll call the meeting to order. Pursuant to state executive orders which temporarily suspend the in-person presence requirements and eliminate the limitation on remote access of the Illinois Open Meetings Act due to COVID-19 and the pandemic, the board is suspending the usual electronic attendance and voting section of the board bylaws and will allow all board members to attend this meeting remotely and fully participate remotely. So would the reporter please call the roll?
Okay. Barb Bennett.
Here.
Beth Scheid.
Here.
Gloria Yen.
Here.
Jane Williams.
Here on the phone.
Okay. John Thies.
Here.
Lupe Mejia.
Here.
Michael Weissman.
Here.
Sharice Hersey.
Here.
Okay. And we are missing right now Mark Pelmore.
All right. Thank you, Becky. Are there any additions, corrections, modifications to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Becky, please call the roll.
Okay. I need a second. I got several in there. So,
I think I had Beth. I think I saw Beth.
okay. Then we will do that. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Barb Bennett.
Yes.
Beth Scheid.
Yes.
Gloria Yen.
Yes.
Jane Williams.
Yes.
John Thies.
Yes.
Lupe Mejia.
Yes.
Michael Weissman.
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Let's move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Let me take a quick look. Just a moment. No.
Seeing none, hearing none, we're going to move on to presentations. Item 7.0, starting with 7.1, the annual financial report. And we've got Joe from Baker Tilly. Joe, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight, and thank you for using Baker Tilly as your auditors. There are two reports that I'll go over tonight, the audited financial statements and the reporting and insights letter. I'll be going over at a very high brief level. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. If you've already had a chance to look at some of the information and you want to ask me questions as we go, we can do that. Or, if something you see later strikes your interest and you want to reach out to talk about it, I'm available for that as well. But with that, I'll start with the financial statements. And just a few pages I want to point out.
Do you want me to share the screen? Joe,
Please do.
okay. Do
you want me to share my screen?
Okay. I don't know if you want to share screen or not, but I'll make you co-host and you can do that if you need
You do
to.
that.
Okay. You're good to go.
Okay, so everyone should be able to see the page titled Independent Auditors Report. So this is page one of the financial statements. Once again, we issued a clean or unmodified opinion on the library's financial statements. The highest level of assurance you can gain from your independent auditors, and states that everything's reasonable in all material respects and can be reasonably relied upon by an outside user of the financial statements. The next page I like to point out is starting on page 3, the management's discussion and analysis. Well, I'm not going to really go over kind of what's in the details of here. What this is it's a high-level overview of the financial information compared to the prior year, written from management's perspective. So it gives you a really good understanding and kind of some of the information you've probably seen throughout the year, but it relates to the current year and the prior year in kind of a comparison. So you want to see why certain funds increased or decreased, or actual results compared to budget, and why. The why is really what you get from this letter. So it's a really good, well-written, easy to understand piece of these financial statements. On page 15, I like to point this out because you only see this information once a year with the audit. And what this is all of the funds of the library and the component unit. in one spot. So it's all grouped together in two columns, and it's all of the assets and all of the liabilities of the library. So you can see you have capital assets and you have long-term liabilities, the compensated absences payable and the net OPEB liability. So this is the only place you really see this all in one column, and it sums down to total net position. And at the end of at June 30th, 2020, the library had total net position in the governmental activities of a little under $11 million. The following pages 16 and 17 give you activity for the year for all of the funds in the accounts of the library. And on page 17, you can see that net position decreased slightly from the prior year, about $274,000. Continuing just kind of on the, once we get past those, you can see that we get into fund level information. So this is the balance sheet by fund, so the general and then the trust with the total column. This is on the modified accrual basis, which is a short-term perspective. So it has short-term receivables and payables of the library, whereas the first schedule was all a long-term perspective. This is short-term. And on page 20 is the income statement for the general fund and the trust fund. And you can see how the fund balances decreased overall by a little under 11,000 for the year for general and trust combined, and general was down about 137,000. And as I mentioned before, if you go back to the MD&A, you can kind of see all the good reasons for these changes in these accounts. After this, also with kind of something I like to point out is, it's June 30th is, sort of a high level mark for when you have revenues in throughout the year. Looking at fund balances compared to expenditures is kind of good to see how much reserves you have at June 30th. And at June 30th in the general fund, you had a little over 6 months in reserve. Obviously, that all depends on what the library's plans are for those funds, but it's good to look at trends over time, and I believe that is pretty consistent from what the library has historically had. After this, I'm not going to go over too much what else is in the financial statements, but there's the notes to the financial statements, which gives you a lot of detail on the accounting policies of the library, and some more of the detail on kind of the ins and outs of the different balances of the library, mainly the kind of the long-term perspective. You can see a change in capital assets and a change in long-term debt. Kind of with that, those are the kind of the prepared remarks I had on the financial statements, at least. Unless there's any questions, I'll move on to the reporting and insights letter.
Any questions for Joe on that part of this report? Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so the reporting and insights from the 2020 audit, this is a rebranded version of what we had historically presented as our communications, those charged with governance and management. It satisfies a few different auditing standards with things that we're required to report at the end of the year. So there's a lot of different areas that we have to report on, even if there's no findings or nothing of note in the report. So you'll see that a lot through here, is that there's areas that give you some information and say nothing was found during the audit, which is good. This is a pretty boilerplate letter, except for maybe some of the things I'll point out. But overall, it's a good report from the results of our audit. The main thing I like about this rebranded version of the letter is on the page 2 is the executive summary, and it gives my contact information. So it has my email, my phone number, and also has the email and phone number of Mike Malott, who's presented to you in the past as well. So we work for management to perform the audit, but we ultimately work for the board. If you ever have any questions, concerns, things you'd like to talk about, this is kind of where you come back and you can see our contact information and pick up the phone or shoot us an email and let us know if there's anything you want to talk about with the audit. One of the new parts of the letter that I like to point out, because it may look a little more interesting than it actually is on page 11. There's a section for significant risk areas. So this is our consideration, our audit considerations of what we think could be significant risks with the library. And I like to point this out because these two areas are in our auditing standards, you don't have a choice but to consider these as significant risk areas. So we look at these in every audit. If there were anything else that we thought was significant for the library that we thought was a risk, we would document that here. But as far as this letter is concerned, there's only the two standard areas that we look at in every audit, and that's really looking at journal entries, management override of controls, and then improper revenue recognition due to fraud. Just like to point that out because I've had boards look at it and get concerned where there's really no specific concern that we see, at least. Then the last
Joe,
thing,
you don't. Sorry to interrupt, but Joe, you don't have any suggested controls to address that because part of it is management's ability to override the controls. Right. And so when we look at that, we look at where the big concern there is journal entry. So you can change something, you can have an approval go through, an invoice go through, a coding go through, and then someone go over, say, and kind of hide something else by putting a journal entry in that doesn't get, that kind of makes things look different than they were initially intended to be. And the library does have good controls over journal entry. So we do look at the controls related to that, but even saying that, we still have to look at this area. And speaking of internal controls, the last part of this letter that I wanted to point out is the internal control matter section on page 12. When we come in to do the library's audit and planning, we look at internal controls, we look at significant controls, significant audit areas, and we look at internal controls to determine the nature, timing, and extent of our procedures, not to provide an opinion on internal controls, but if something comes up to our attention that we feel the board should know of, or significant risks in internal controls, we put them in this part of the letter. And the comment here is a similar comment to what you've received in the past, and it's really it's internal controls over financial reporting, and it's really due to our preparation of the financial statements and assistance with that process with the library. It's not the day-to-day internal controls approvals over accounts payable or payroll or things like that. It's really on the reporting, year-end reporting that, the business office, their expertise is in the day-to-day operations of the library, not understanding necessarily all of the new accounting standards that are come into play and note disclosures that are extensive and required in the report. It's not to say that the library doesn't take ownership and understand if there was and take review of this report. It's just mainly that we prepare the financial statements. And this is a very common thing for us to report in our financial statements with local governments, just because, and especially libraries your size, just because of the nature of your operations. With that, I had no further areas of the report that I wanted to go over. There's just a lot of in here. If you were to read it, you would see like different areas and us saying that there were no disagreements with management and no significant concerns related to our work. Joe, thank you. First, are there any questions or comments for Joe? Charisse.
I just want to say thanks for the work that you put into doing this. I guess my basic question is, does this mean the library has like an all clear? Like everything is fine?
Is it a clean audit?
Yeah.
It is a clean audit. Our opinion on the financial statements, it's clean, it's unmodified, the numbers are good, it can be relied upon, in our opinion, as of June 30th.
Okay. Charisse, thanks for the question. Someone needed to ask that. Are there any other questions or comments?
Just a comment that, yes, because I've seen these for year after year after year, I was a little taken aback at the new form saying, wait, look at all these significant risks. And then I read a little more carefully, it says, oh, new format. I like the new format. It's maybe easier to, there's more use of color, clarity in the presentation, but I was kind of looking for the meat of it and was pleased to see, the nice job you did. And once again, it's a clean audit.
Yes, thank you, Beth. Okay, if we don't have any other questions or comments, I'll encourage those of you, especially our two new members, that it's nice to have the ability to call Joe. He's giving you his information. If you read through this carefully or further as you go along, I'm sure you read it carefully so far. please call in and get your questions answered after the fact, because it's a great way to understand an organization to read through an audit like this. Joe, thanks so much.
Thank you, and have a good night.
You too.
All right.
We will move on to 7.2, and we've got a budget overview from Celeste.
Okay, Becky, and I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, let me make you
Can
co-host.
you?
You're on your way. Just a second here.
Okay, great.
Okay, you're good to go. Should be.
There we go. So what I thought I'd do is just take a quick few minutes to talk through the budget planning process and note that we build our budget around the strategic plan pillars: embrace, enrich, empower, and enhance. So we do all our work focusing on the vision and the mission of the library that the board has set. And the timeline for looking at our budget planning process, just so we're all on the same page, is that we talk about this now and let people think about, especially with 2 new board members, think about the process, see if they have any questions about the process in January. And then in January, we bring a draft budget of our request to the foundation board, So Amanda has already prepared a draft. The foundation board meets next month. We'll be making our request to them to vote on that budget request in February, so that in February, we have got that information, and we will bring you, the library board, our draft budget in March, so that we have all the information we need from the foundation and or the Friends before we bring a budget to you, which is something we started maybe a year or 2 ago, and it seems to make the process smoother so that when we bring the budget to you, it's got everything in one place. In March, again, you'll have the draft budget, and in April we'll have you approve the budget. Then what happens is the library's budget is incorporated with all the different city departmental budgets and brought in front of the city council, and they look at it in May and June and do their votes. And then the budget is complete within that whole entire city process. So just as a quick reminder, the library has a couple of different funds. The largest fund is the 802s for us, which is the library general fund. And the majority of the taxes, the taxes are the majority of the budget. About 80% of our general operating funds come from property taxes. We have the 810s, which is the gift funds, the library trust fund. That's where our money from the friends of the library and individual donors go. So for example, people like to honor their friends or family members to celebrate a birthday, or if someone passes, they'll send the library a $25 check or a $500 check. And those gift funds come through this 810 library trust fund. And then we have the building fund, which is a smaller fund. That is the money that right now is income and expenses on the rental property that we have in the Weber building. We also have a separate special reserve fund, which is savings set aside for future capital expenses for the building. So most of the expenses that we have are from the revenue that comes in. Occasionally we dip into fund balance for special projects like the staff parking lot that we're going to work on across the street this spring, coming from a gift that was donated a little while back. Or for example, when people leave the library, when they separate, if they have participated in the health retirement savings program, we set aside money every year so that when people leave, we pay them out 100% as owed. And so we have fully funded that as we go every year, but we do budget that people might leave and we might take from fund balance. But generally, most of the money is not coming from fund balance. Most of it's coming from the general expenses. So different resources that we use as we develop the budget. Of course, the strategic plan and the technology plan that you'll be talking about later today. We have an older financial plan, this from 2014 to 2018. One of my goals this year is to update that. We wanted to have the new strategic plan in place, which we now do. So we'll work on that, but we have accomplished most of the goals in that financial plan. Last year, one of the things we worked on was caulking the 1918 windows. They didn't need to be replaced, but we did some initial work just to keep them a little bit more energy efficient. And we'll look at other capital expenses for the building to keep us energy efficient and keep the building rolling to the future. We also look at the City of Urbana's financial forecast. They, in October, did an updated version based on what we knew at the time about COVID and its impact on the City of Urbana. It's I think, a 41-page document, and this is a hot link. I'll share this later in case you want to take a look at it. We also look at serving our public, which is the Illinois Public Library standards. And there are a couple of different numbers in there. For example, it notes that 70% of the library's operating budget could be spent on wages and benefits, but they don't recommend spending more than that. And a certain percentage could be spent on materials and materials processing. So that is one of the places that we look to make sure that we're on target with the general recommendations and standards. We look at the usage data and the trends that we're seeing. So for example, we were already seeing an increase of use of ebooks and streaming items. And as we budget for how we spend the library's resources, when we moved, I think it was $25,000 last year out of print and physical items to e-items, we also looked at staffing that was associated with that. And with COVID, when we looked at programming, we looked at staffing as well. So if we knew we weren't going to go to the farmer's market to do outreach, we knew that we could either save money in that staffing area or that we could shift that those resources into other areas that we needed. So as we look at ebooks, we know that we don't need to buy supplies or pay staff to process, stamp, and sticker those physical items. But we do know, so that's a savings. But what we do know is when we buy more items like those sewing machines or Wi-Fi hotspots or other items in that Library of Things collection, those items actually, the processing takes more time and has a greater staff cost. And the actual cases that you put those items in cost more than just the stamps and stickers one might put on a DVD or a book. So we look at how people are using the library, how we anticipate they're going to use the library, and we budget based on those things. And then we look at our community's needs and the feedback they've been giving us in different ways as well, whether it's a survey or other feedback that we've gotten. If you're interested in looking at the information we have about our budget, you want to go to the Your Right to Know webpage, and just under the Board of Trustees section, you can see there's a bullet for budgets and employee compensation. And if you click there, you can see all the different documents involving the different fiscal years budget documents. And then underneath that are the financial reports, which Becky updates every time we pay bills. She makes a copy of where the library stands and posts that online, as well as a vendor report. And then underneath that are the audit reports. So if you're looking for financials, go to Your Right to Know and you can click through here and learn more. And of course, I'm available anytime you want to talk about these things. And then the planning documents are just below that on the page. So it's a nice one-stop shop for things that you might want to know. So other considerations as we think about planning this particular year's budget. So COVID-19 has had a lot of impacts, and we're not done with COVID-19 yet. So we are dealing with people who are unemployed or underemployed and the impact that has on our community. We're in a recession overall. There's different state and local governments are spending money that we didn't necessarily budget for because we didn't know we had to buy that many more computers for people that work at home when we started this fiscal year's budget. We didn't know a lot of things. We didn't know what grants we would get to help pay for those different supplies and PPE. So we've tried to be flexible, and we are definitely working within the budget. And as we look towards next year's budget, we will look to what has currently been happening and how we'll move ahead. There might be new governmental mandates. So we're going to talk about extending leave benefits, for example. It is possible that there's a new federal government mandate on how organizations offer leave to employees that might be mandatory. And again, that's not in the budget, but we made it work. We're looking as always for alternate sources of revenue. So the Friends are looking at starting an online Etsy store to sell books, as well as having that Amazon store. And then, of course, we're looking at decreasing revenue for a number of reasons. For one thing, we were generous last year, and when we were closed, we weren't charging fines. So we brought in less fine revenue because we didn't want our patrons to have to stress out about overdue books in the middle of a pandemic when we weren't accepting returns. Also, as people's use of the library changes, for example, those ebooks we talked about or streaming movies, they don't accrue overdue fees. So if you can't get charged an overdue, then the library can't receive that revenue. So we need to look at that. We don't have the cafe open right now, so we don't have the expense of running the cafe, but we also don't have the revenue either. And then a purposeful decrease of revenue that the board might consider is there's an international trend of libraries going fine-free to remove barriers to use of the library by community members. And libraries large and small are heading in this direction. So things for us to consider as we develop a budget to bring to you. Oh, another thing, because of COVID that does impact workflow as well is volunteers. Eleanor has done a very fine job of working with the departments to have volunteers work in the places that are meaningful for them and for the departments. And she was really increasing our volunteer opportunities, but we've really had to limit the number of people in the building. So fewer volunteers doing work means having to pay more staff sometimes to do that work. So again, just a quick note on some of the recent work we've done towards the financial plan goals. We worked on caulking the windows. We have implemented most of the 2008 wage and benefits survey, and we're waiting on the city of Urbana to finish their current evaluation of their wages and benefits so that we can look at TUFL work and how that's being done and compare it to what the city's paying people. Next up, we're going to update the financial plan. And in the plan, we'll add elements like having a fund balance as a percentage of recurring funds. And then we are starting the building program process. We're going to update the library campus plan and then implement library technology plan initiatives. And that's what I have for you as a quick high-level overview.
Excellent. Celeste, thank you.
Comments?
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Celeste?
Just a clarification. Didn't we hold off on doing the financial plan because we wanted to finish the strategic plan? I'm trying to remember the sequence. And I thought we said it's kind of silly to do a financial plan and then do a strategic plan and then have them not be aligned. So am I remembering that right?
You are. That's why our financial plan expired in 2018, and then we started the strategic plan after that.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll get back on the other now.
Charisse.
Well, are we heavily considering going fine free? Is it?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering. I was wondering that because I know that if we're considering this, I guess my take is that it not be something that happened right, like instantaneously. That instead of, because it's what, 25 cents a day or something?
Depending on the item, some items are different levels.
And so considering how our revenue intake seems to be kind of squashed, I don't know that it would be a good idea to go fine free, maybe to decrease fines for a while and do it incrementally that way, going down if in fact we are going fine free. But I think, right, I don't know that fine free. I'm sure I owe some fines. I pay them whenever I show up. But I don't know that doing that right away is something that we want to do. I guess that's my question or comment.
I think we'll have a chance to discuss that if staff decides to make that recommendation. Agreed, Celeste?
Yes, and there's different ways, Charisse, like you're talking about whether you, for example, you could do what Champaign Public Library and other libraries do. They implemented auto renewals of items. So that meant that if you had an item, it would be renewed automatically when it came due. So it meant that some items, like if there was a hold on it, those would have to come back. but other items renewed automatically, and it decreased their revenue by about 40% the year they did that. So it was a way to increase circulation and decrease fines and increase engagement with the community, but didn't cut it back 100%. You could be fine free just on youth materials. You're the board, you get to pick. So there are a number of different ways to consider this as an option, or continue as we are now and charging all the fines. That's a decision. So we'll give you some options to consider.
Okay, great question. Any other questions for Celeste? All right, thanks for that report. Let's move on to paragraph 8, and it's the consent agenda. First of all, are there any items on the consent agenda that a member would like to remove? Okay, seeing
No.
none, I'm going to call for a motion in just a second, but what we're talking about are the board meeting minutes of December 8th, 2020, payroll for December 18, 2020 in the amount of $97,444.09, payroll for December 31st, 2020 totaling $91,251.74, bills for December 11, 2020 total of $28,661.63, bills for December 18, 2020 totaling $15,525.76, bills for December 28, 2020 totaling $5,480.83, and bills for the January 8, 2021 period, and that's totaling $37,557.72. That's all part of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Moved by Michael.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Jane. Is there any discussion? Okay, the reporter, please call the roll.
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
Yes.
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore. Mark, there you go.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Michael Weissman
Yes.
and Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, and they were all, that was unanimously in favor. The ayes have it, and that motion carries, and the agenda is approved. Let us move on then to item number 9, and 9.1 is the election of Secretary Pro Temp Lupe Mejia. And that was brought to you last month by the nominating committee, as I recall. Is there a motion to elect Lupe to the position of Secretary Pro Temp?
So moved.
It's been moved by Michael. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Barb Bennett. Is there discussion? There better not be. Sorry, I'm chilling discussion. Anybody, you're more than welcome to talk. Okay, would the reporter please call the roll?
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
Yes.
John Thies,
Yes,
Lupe Mejia.
Guess I should say yes.
you better.
I don't think it's too late to say no. Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, and that was unanimous, so the motion carries. Congratulations, Lupe. Let us move on to 9.2, the approval of technology plan, January 2021 to January 2022. Staff, do you have anything to say about that?
Drew gave you a brief presentation last month about this. If anyone had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, otherwise we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Beth. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second from all over the place.
Everybody.
We're gonna say Lupe. She has the biggest smile from her election. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay.
I wanted to say something.
Sure, Sharice, go ahead.
I don't know, Celeste, if you could give me a brief refresh. I remember Drew talking about telling us about the technology that there were some technology updates that we were gonna have to make? Was there something like that? I can't, that's why I said I need a refresh.
Sure. So what Drew did is he aligned the different technology areas with the different strategic pillars. So under Embrace, the main heading is increasing accessibility at public workstations with a couple of specific projects. Develop additional digital program promotion areas. So looking at where we could put more digital monitors to increase engagement with people. And then develop and launch additional circulating technology collections to expand community access to technology. And that would be like checking out more Wi-Fi hotspots, maybe with laptops, things like that. So that's under Embrace. Under Enrich, we're improving digital content creation to enhance the patron experience, giving patrons more tools and staff more tools to make things more, again, engaging. We're really getting together with people. We're increasing staff capacity to create virtual programming because virtual programming is with us and our patrons love it. And staff love it too. We're going to launch a new library website, which is a huge initiative for us. We're going to increase staff capacity to create and edit videos for programming and promotional purposes. So like you talked about, library fairy, things like that. Under Empower, we're going to expand staff ability to check out library materials off-site. And then under Enhance, there are 7 different specific initiatives, and I'd be happy to talk through all those or not.
You don't have to.
Okay.
I think Therese has been refreshed.
Yeah, I've been refreshed.
Okay. Well, good job on the fly, Celeste. So is there, no, that was discussion. We've got a motion and a second, do we not? We do. Okay.
We do.
Then we're going to go on with the reporter calling the roll.
Okay. Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay. Another unanimous, we're on a roll. We got another unanimous vote. So we're going to deem that approved. Thank you. 9.3, the Champaign Public Library invoice for $22,541.93. That's in your materials. Any further explanation from staff? Okay.
We're part of the Polaris bill so that we can offer the online catalog and the behind the scenes pieces.
Got it. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Lupe. Is there a second?
second,
Second by Jane. Okay. Any discussion? All right, Becky, please call the roll.
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid.
That was a yes, although it was inaudible.
Okay.
Yes.
You lost her.
I'm a ventriloquist.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
I forgot to tell you, we've adopted a youth movement on board. Each month, we're going to have another 2 youngsters that are going to join. All right, thank you. That was unanimous. So the ayes have it and the motion will carry. 9.4, we have the Urbana Free Library Annual Financial Report. Do we have anything further from staff on that? Or Sharice, you've got a question or comment, or you want to make a motion?
I want to make a motion. I'd like to move to approve and accept the 2 full annual financial report.
All right, it's been moved by Sharice. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Barb. And is there any discussion? Hearing none. Becky, please call the roll.
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, another unanimous one. The ayes have it and the motion carries. On to 9.5, circulation and interlibrary loan policy revision. Okay, do we have a motion?
I so move.
Moved by Barb. Is there a second?
second,
Second by Jane. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please respond when Becky asks you. I
Barb
caught
Bennett?
myself, didn't I?
Good catch. Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, again, that was unanimous and the ayes have it and the motion carries. That's approved. And last, 9.6, the approval of extending COVID-19 leave time benefits. And so I'll call on Celeste to explain that. That was something that came out most recently.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the time with this. We know that the federal government's mandatory leave benefits expired on December 31st. It is possible that the federal government will implement new mandatory leave benefits due to COVID-19 sometime in the near future. We're not sure when that might be or if it will happen. But as a management team of 10, we all wanted to bring to you and ask you to continue on the benefits that we've had to support staff. Fortunately, our staff have been very safe and very healthy. Only a handful of people, 5 out of 75 employees, have needed to use any of the type of leave at all. We also want to offer something very similar to what the City of Urbana employees are getting as well. So this is not the federal plan. It's a longer period of time. It's more generous. The library will not get reimbursed and get tax credits as private employers would do. So we don't have to follow the federal plan strictly. So our plan is based on the city and based on the federal government, but a little bit more generous in case someone had more than one quarantine opportunity. We prefer that people stay home and be quarantined, work from home if possible, but we don't want them to feel torn between coming to work and possibly exposing other people when we could have them stay home and be paid and be quarantined. So I do have a typo on page 2 that I apologize for under number 5, talking about childcare providers, not childcare provides. And that has to do with people and their kids in school. So that's what I have.
All right, thank you, Celeste. First, is there a motion to approve? We'll give you a chance to talk about it in a second.
Yes, so moved.
Moved by Beth, second by Sharice. Okay, now, discussion. Any questions or comments for Celeste?
I've just never heard it referred to as a quarantine opportunity. I think I'm going to borrow that.
That's called spin.
Yeah, just I'd like to say, as much as there's certain categories here where it's very compatible with work from home. For example, if you're quarantined, you're not sick, and you don't have special childcare responsibilities. So as much as possible, a lot of these things can be integrated with working at home. So.
Yes,
That's absolutely right.
excellent point, Michael. Sharice.
I guess a question that I do have a question regarding if, and I want to extend this, but I also want to understand if, should an opportunity present itself regarding getting grant funding for reimbursement for this type of extension, is there anything that we will be doing that would probably kick us off of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
The only thing that's slightly different is the length of time is longer. Again, no staff have hit any of the limits from before, so I don't anticipate that that would be the case now. And there might be a question under, sorry, wrong piece of paper. When you're looking at the schools being closed, the schools are not physically closed anymore, but students are many students are engaged in some type of remote learning. So for some students, it's 100% remote learning. That's what the school offers. And in some cases, it's maybe half days remote learning. And so it's going to depend on what the individual school is offering and what some type of grant might consider closed. We're following the trends and following what's available, but the trend is that governmental bodies don't get tax credits for this to reimburse staff to not work.
Oh, okay.
And that's been the reimbursement process before. So it is not likely there's any type of opportunity for a governmental body to get reimbursed for this.
Okay.
Yeah, what I could imagine is, of course, we're watching what's happening in Washington now with the new administration, and one of the issues that so far has not been addressed is support for state and local government. And so I don't have any special information about that, but this would fall into the category of how local government has been impacted by it, and so we wouldn't throw the towel in on the possibility that we might have some sort of opportunity. Okay, are there any other questions about this?
I don't have a question, but I do have a suggestion as to
Yeah,
the
Gloria.
language on page 2 under item 5. I'm just suggesting the consideration of more inclusive gender neutral language and perhaps substituting the word child for son or daughter.
All right. So we have, this is in discussion, and so that would be in the nature of a friendly amendment. Is there a second to that?
Is she moving? Gloria?
I'm taking it as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Sure.
A second.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go ahead and have discussion on the friendly amendment. Seeing none, let's go ahead and have Becky call the roll on amending the underlying motion. This is not the final motion. This is on the amendment itself. Becky?
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous and the motion carries. And so now the amended motion is on the table with that change. Are there any further comments or any other discussion? Seeing none, you're all ready to vote? Okay, Becky, call it again, please.
Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Gloria Yen,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
yes,
John Thies,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Yes.
Just on one of these things, one of these days, I'm going to get one of you to vote no, just for the fun of it. Okay, the motion carries. That was unanimous. Thanks very much. Let's go on to paragraph 10, discussion items. Are there any discussion items tonight? All right, then we're going to go on to reports. Library Friends.
I don't have any report. Do you have anything, Celeste?
No, other than looking at almost ready with the Etsy store, that's all I have.
Okay, thank
with
you. Thank you, Barb. The Library Foundation.
Point.
I just
Oh,
want
sorry, Sharice, go ahead.
That's okay. With the Etsy thing, Celeste, because that sounds like a great idea. Will it just be books that they're going to be selling, also trying to sell on Etsy, or can it be arts and crafts maybe that people donate or make up for the library or something like that?
You know, we haven't gone down that path yet, Sharice. We were looking at more the physical donated items as well as maybe library t-shirts or bags or things like that.
Okay.
But if you're saying we want to have a call for donations, that is a thing we can talk about later. Thank you. We had not thought about that.
Okay.
Okay, and did we hear anything on foundation? Is that, we didn't do that, did we? Is that what that?
I can report for the foundation and that the annual campaign is still moving well. We've been reaching out to thank our donors and that we have a new board member starting this month. And that we have, again, that draft budget request going to the foundation board this month as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, then on to Illinois Heartland Library System, Lupe.
So IHLS did not meet in December, so I don't have a report there. I do have just one thing. The advocacy committee met today, and one thing that came up today is on the ILA website are a letter that ILA wrote to IDPH regarding school librarians and library staff in general regarding prioritization for vaccines. So they are recommending that public librarians be considered in groups 1B or 1C for vaccine rollouts. So there's some more information on ILA's website. You can see the letter that was written to IDPH, and there's also a templated letter which board members or library directors can use to also communicate with their local agencies to make sure that libraries are supported as we're rolling out priority groups for vaccines.
Good topic. All right, thank you, Lupe. And we're on to administrative reports, and starting with board and committee reports. Are there any?
I'm sorry, John, can I ask Lupe real quickly?
I'm sorry,
And
Gloria. Yep, I looked down. That was my fault.
Yes.
Sorry if I missed it somewhere else. Can you send the template out with the meeting, or can the template be sent out?
Celeste will get it sent out. Thank you, Celeste.
Okay. Are we all ready to move on? Celeste.
For 12.0, I have two small things for the administrative report.
Oh, yes.
So the Illinois Library Association, speaking of advocacy, will be having the Central Illinois Legislator Breakfast Meetup, which will be February 26th. And I will send that information out to you later, save the date if you're interested in that. And then, of course, as we move past the holiday season, when people were maybe getting together, we continue to evaluate COVID numbers. And more towards the end of the month, we'll be looking at what the different numbers look like and developing our plan for reopening the building once we feel the numbers are safe. So just know that conversations are happening and we continue to keep our finger on the pulse.
Good.
That's what I have.
Yeah, I think we're going to enter a world of vaccines where pretty rapidly we're going to have those who have been vaccinated and those who haven't. And presumably we're all still going to be urged to wear masks. And I know staff's working on this to know how do we get people back into the building and what do we expect from them. And what one question, more and more information is out about keeping track of vaccinations and what's the best way to do that. Apps that people are going to be using to get access, similar to what is happening on campus. I don't know whether that has any application to what's going on in our library, but I think there's a whole new range of questions that the board will need to consider as we move forward. So it's very, very exciting. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but keep the faith and keep the mask on.
Just a comment.
Yeah, Michael.
That overall, that I agree with that, but it's going to be a little bit longer tunnel than we thought because of the new variant with 1.6 times the transmissivity. And there's no way at this point that it's not going to be around here. It's getting to be around every place else because it's so much more transmissible. So
Right.
that's going to stretch out this process.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think as we have protocols, it will recognize, and I'm not an expert, but it will recognize that there will be some who have not been vaccinated yet, who will be in a community full of a lot of people who have been, and there'll be a real need to keep wearing masks for a while. But it'll also create opportunities for us to bring people back into the building. So think that it's going to be a net positive. Let's just keep at it. Okay, are there any other, oh, Charisse. Oh, you're on mute, Charisse. I almost still heard you.
Shut up. I'm sorry. I am not that loud. I just wanted to piggyback on what Michael was saying in the sense that Julie Pride has said also that, and she's the director of the public health district. Even if you are vaccinated, you should still wear a mask. And I don't know, you know, on my Facebook page, I kind of put masks still matter, because they do, regardless of and if everybody here at the meeting can also just like spread that word, because I don't know how much that's being communicated. I think some people may think, oh, I got vaccinated and so I don't have to do that. And next thing you know, we're having fights in the library because some people don't feel like they have to put anything over their nose and mouth because they've been vaccinated. So if we can just hang a sign, even something like that, even if you're vaccinated, hashtag masks still matter. So something like that, just to tone down the confusion.
And just for the record, over the noon hour, there was yet another one of these university briefings done by the Chancellor, Provost, and the Danita Brown, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And the main audience was students and parents, but also faculty and staff. And they made a very strong statement saying just that even if you're vaccinated, we are going to keep the same compliance rules with masking and social distancing throughout the semester. Because looking at the trajectory of when we'll have enough people vaccinated, and especially with this variant coming on, that it was very, very clear, saying there will be no change in the compliance rules that the university has set up. So, you know, now, of course, they're trying to get that message amplified, and there'll be a lot of repetition. So, Charisse, I think that it's a really good message saying, keep wearing the masks, keep social distancing.
I'm hoping that people will be so happy to get to do things that they'll tolerate that. There'll be an opportunity to actually go to a restaurant and take your mask off and eat, and then put it back on and walk out.
Well, yeah, we tried that before, and I guess I'm kind of speaking as a city council member right now. We tried that before too, you know, with letting certain restaurants reopen and so on and so forth. And an experience that I had with my mom, you know, we thought we'd go to this one restaurant that she really likes to go to. I'm not going to say who it is, Cracker Barrel, but they were letting people in not masked, even though, you know, there was an ordinance at the time that in the common areas, you know, you can sit down and eat without your mask, of course, but in the common areas, you really needed to be masked. And there were people that weren't masked. I had to, you know, take my mom back out to the car. She had on her mask, but she's also 84 years old, and several, you know, risk factor issues. And so you're right. I would think that it would make people just want to be able to get out, but I think a lot of times it backfires. They don't understand how much it matters to someone else that you have on a mask.
No, that's right. It bears repeating that that will be in a world where so many more will have been vaccinated, so it'll be safer in that respect, I think.
I hope.
It's we've got to teach people that they still wear masks. Anyway, we're preaching the converted. It looks like we don't. This is not Congress. We actually have a consensus on this issue. I can tell. If we had to be in a bunker, we'd all be, you know, masked.
Right.
Exactly.
But I digress. We're going to go on to paragraph 13, board and committee reports. Anything else besides what we've heard from already? All right, move on to 14, the board president's report. I don't have anything to add to what I've said before. Any unfinished business? Seeing none. Any new business? You're all so well behaved. Then we're going to go on to, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Somebody who wants to unmute long enough to do that. Oh, Michael, you're ready to go. Okay.
Yes, I move to adjourn.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
I didn't, who was that? It's really important. Oh, Sharice, okay. All right. I don't think we need to call the roll for that. We are done. Thanks so much. Good meeting, everybody.